Security, remove this individual at once. He has no business being here. Alejandro Vargas walks toward the gleaming white marble reception desk of the Serafina Gallery, his faded denim jacket and simple gray t-shirt immediately attracting the disdain of the gallery director, Eleanor Vance. The track lighting overhead illuminates her contemptuous expression as she assesses him. Brown skin, casual attire, and a confident stance that clashes with her preconceived notions of who belongs in the world of high art. "I beg your pardon, sir, but this is a private gallery," Eleanor proclaims, her voice coated in a thin veneer of false courtesy. The other patrons in the gallery, uniformly white and expensively dressed, turn to observe the scene she is creating. Alejandro maintains his composure perfectly. "Good evening. I'm here for the private viewing under Vargas Innovations." Eleanor doesn't bother to look at her tablet. "I find that highly unlikely." She gestures to security with a dramatic flourish, maximizing the audience for her display. "We uphold certain standards for our clientele." Two security guards draw near as the affluent patrons whisper their approval of Eleanor's efforts to safeguard their rarefied environment. The degradation is public, calculated, and sharp, precisely as Eleanor orchestrated. It's startling to see a person's worth be judged so quickly and cruelly based on their clothes and skin color. This scene makes you question how often we make assumptions about people without knowing their story. Have you ever felt judged unfairly based on your appearance? It's a reminder that dignity should never be a luxury item. But Alejandro is not who they believe him to be, and their insular world is on the verge of collapsing. Alejandro chose to arrive by taxi instead of his customary Audi, deliberately dressed down after a long flight from Austin, Texas. He is the 32-year-old founder of Vargas Innovations, a tech unicorn valued at $3.5 billion. But on this day, he is conducting a quiet evaluation of his latest acquisition, an art investment firm he acquired just 2 days prior through a series of shell corporations. The Serafina Gallery embodies everything dysfunctional about the exclusive art world, a stunning exterior masking deep-seated systemic prejudice. Alejandro had heard rumors about their biased treatment of patrons and wanted to witness it himself before enacting significant changes. Eleanor Vance, 52, has been the director of this gallery for 15 years. She has cultivated her career on preserving an air of exclusivity, a euphemism for excluding anyone who does not match her narrow definition of affluence and culture. Her junior curator, Liam O'Connell, 29, looks on with anxiety as Eleanor's biases come to the forefront. Alejandro moves to the reception desk with a quiet assurance, his Ivy League education and prior service as a Marine officer evident despite his casual wear. "Good evening. I'm here for the private viewing under Vargas Innovations." Eleanor doesn't even check her list. Her gaze sweeps over his outfit, high quality but understated sneakers, a plain t-shirt, a worn denim jacket. "I do apologize, but there appears to have been a misunderstanding," she says, her tone syrupy with fake politeness. "This gallery caters to a very specific type of collector." Her deliberate stress on specific makes her intent painfully obvious. Other patrons, older couples dripping in jewelry, young hedge fund managers, socialites, turn to watch the unfolding drama. Eleanor's voice intentionally rises. "Perhaps you would find one of the public galleries in Soho more suitable." Alejandro stays calm, taking out his phone. "Would you mind checking your system? The reservation should be on file." Eleanor's laugh is sharp and dismissive. "Sir, there is no need for me to check anything. I can see plainly that you do not belong here." The gallery goes quiet. Even the staff behind the desk seem uneasy, but no one says a word. Eleanor continues her act for the assembled crowd. We have a dress code, you understand. Standards must be upheld. Alejandro feels the familiar sting of racism masked as institutional policy, but his face remains impassive. He has gathered data in dozens of similar environments, boardrooms, exclusive clubs, fine dining restaurants, but this evening feels different, more intimate. Eleanor has no inkling that she has just insulted the man who is now the owner of her entire professional universe. Alejandro shifts his approach, speaking with slow clarity. Ma'am, my name is Alejandro Vargas. My company arranged this viewing 3 days ago. Could you please just verify it? He remains perfectly courteous, aware that any display of frustration would be used against him. Eleanor's eyes narrow. Vargas, that's not possible. That's... She trails off, the name ringing a bell, but she dismisses the thought. Listen, I don't know what kind of deception you're attempting, but impersonating a patron is a serious offense. She motions to Liam, who hesitantly steps forward. Contact security, she commands. Liam hesitates. There's something about Alejandro's calm presence that suggests this is not a routine issue. Eleanor, perhaps we ought to just... Did I give you an unclear instruction? Eleanor retorts. This man is attempting to con his way into our gallery. Look at him! She gestures contemptuously at Alejandro's attire. Does he appear to be someone who can afford a multi-million-dollar piece of art? The crowd murmurs its assent. A woman clutching a designer handbag whispers loudly, How did he even make it past the entrance? An elderly man nods in firm approval of Eleanor's decisive action. Alejandro reaches into his pocket, pulling out a sleek, black invitation-only credit card with no preset spending limit. Perhaps this might assist in confirming my identity. Eleanor barely looks at it. Anyone can obtain a fraudulent credit card. Security arrives, 2 imposing white men in tailored black suits. Alejandro recognizes the type, likely former law enforcement, good men simply carrying out the directives of a prejudiced director. He offers no resistance as they position themselves on either side of him. Gentlemen, Alejandro says softly. There seems to be some confusion. I am a guest here. The lead security officer, Marcus Cole, seems uncertain. He's worked in high-end security long enough to know real trouble, and this does not fit the profile. Eleanor's voice rings out triumphantly. He is trespassing. Remove him at once. She is now playing directly to her audience, the concerned white patrons who are nodding in agreement with her defense of their exclusive sanctuary. Marcus looks from Alejandro's quiet dignity to Eleanor's theatrical outrage. His gut tells him something is amiss, but Eleanor is his superior. Sir, I must ask you to leave, he says, a hint of apology in his tone. Alejandro nods slowly, making a mental inventory of every face, every look, every comment. I understand. You're just doing your job. His voice holds no trace of anger, only a profound sense of disappointment. As they guide him toward the exit, Alejandro makes a phone call that will shatter everything. The walk to the exit is a carefully staged procession of shame, orchestrated by Eleanor. Instead of handling the matter with discretion, she ensures it is a public spectacle, her voice echoing across the polished concrete floors. This is precisely why we have such stringent protocols. One can never be too careful about who might attempt to infiltrate our establishment. Other patrons take out their phones, some recording, others stepping away as if Alejandro's presence were a contaminant. A young white woman clutches her purse more tightly. An older man is heard muttering about some people needing to learn their place. The humiliation is intended to be public, sharp, and absolute. Eleanor follows behind, keeping up her narrative. We've had issues in the past with individuals attempting to scam their way into exclusive viewings. They believe if they just look the part. She lets the sentence hang, its poisonous implication clear to all. Marcus Cole, the lead security officer, is growing more uneasy by the second. His earpiece is buzzing with updates from other staff members. Several have discreetly checked the Vargas Innovations reservation and confirmed its legitimacy. "Ma'am," he whispers to Eleanor, "perhaps we should reconsider." "Are you questioning my authority?" Eleanor hisses back. "That man is an impostor, and I will not permit him to spoil the evening for our valued patrons." Alejandro proceeds with quiet dignity, his hands kept in sight, his movements slow and non-threatening. He has endured this before, the weaponization of his presence, the way his very being becomes a perceived threat in predominantly white spaces. But tonight feels more personal, because this gallery is now his. As they get to the large glass doors, Eleanor delivers her final blow. "Sir, you are now officially banned from this gallery. If you attempt to return, you will be arrested." She declares this loudly enough for everyone in the gallery to hear, her voice filled with self-righteous power. A young Latina couple in the corner, both dressed elegantly, watch with a look of shared trauma and recognition. The woman reaches for her partner's hand, reminded of their own similar experiences. They are invited guests, but now feel a chill of insecurity, wondering if they might be next. Alejandro stops at the exit, turning back for one last look. His eyes scan the gallery, absorbing every detail, the uncomfortable expressions on the staff's faces, the mix of shame and approval among the patrons, and Eleanor's smug, triumphant smile. When he speaks, his voice is soft, yet it resonates perfectly in the high-ceilinged space. "I want every person here to remember this evening. Remember how you felt watching this. Remember what you decided to do or not do." His gaze lands on Eleanor. "Because all choices have consequences," Eleanor scoffs, though it now sounds a little strained. "Is that supposed to be a threat?" Alejandro shakes his head slowly. "No, it's a promise." The doors close behind him, and Alejandro is out in the cool night. Inside, Eleanor revels in the praise of her patrons, who commend her for handling the incident with such professionalism. Liam O'Connell stands frozen, his tablet in hand displaying the Vargas Innovations reservation. Confirmed, legitimate, with a special note about the CEO conducting a site evaluation. Outside on the pavement, Alejandro takes out his phone and makes a call that will decimate Eleanor's world in a matter of minutes. He stands in the crisp night air, the gallery's warm light spilling onto the street behind him. The sting of humiliation is sharp, but beneath the personal affront is something more profound. The realization that Eleanor's prejudice is not a singular flaw. It's systemic, protected, and even celebrated by an industry that profits from a sense of exclusion. He pulls out his phone, not to contact his lawyers or public relations team, but to message his assistant, Chloe. "Release the Serafina acquisition announcement now. All staff emergency meeting in 20. Prepare termination documents for senior management. Eleanor Vance, effective this evening." While he waits for her reply, Alejandro reflects on the path that led him to this point. The son of a Colombian immigrant mother and a Mexican-American father, he had built Vargas Innovations from the ground up, starting with a single app developed in his dorm room. Each new venture was driven by a desire to create spaces where a person's worth was not judged by their ethnicity. His phone buzzes. Chloe, as ruthlessly efficient as ever, confirms the acquisition announcement has been released to all major art and business publications. The stock price of the gallery's parent company is already shifting. Board members are in a panic, trying to figure out how a tech firm quietly acquired a controlling stake in their company. Alejandro's second call is to his head of HR, Sofia Rossi. I need you to pull the employment records for all senior staff at the Serafina. Look for patterns, grievances, settlements, and staff turnover rates, especially among minority employees. I have a strong suspicion that tonight was not an anomaly. Through the glass doors, he can see the gallery is still buzzing about his removal. Eleanor is holding court near the entrance, likely embellishing the story to cast herself as a heroic guardian of high culture. She is completely unaware that news of the acquisition is about to break across the art world. His third call is an unexpected one, even for him. He dials his mentor, a retired philosophy professor, Dr. Anya Sharma. I need to talk through something that just occurred. The strategy was successful, but I'm processing feelings I hadn't anticipated. Even in his moment of impending victory, Alejandro acknowledges the psychological cost of intentionally subjecting himself to bigotry to collect evidence. Chloe texts him real-time updates. Art News is leading with the acquisition story. Your past interviews on diversifying the art market are now trending. Gallery justice is starting to trend on social media. Alejandro permits himself a brief moment of quiet satisfaction. Not for personal vengeance, but for the systemic shift this will ignite. For every artist of color who's been marginalized, for every patron who has faced Eleanor's standards, for every person made to feel inadequate in spaces their money should grant them access to. Tonight marks the beginning of their vindication. The glass doors swing open as a new visitor arrives, another young Latino man in casual attire. Alejandro watches as he approaches the reception desk where Eleanor still stands, glowing from her recent triumph. She eyes the new arrival with the same dismissive assessment she had used on Alejandro. Alejandro makes up his mind. This lesson must be delivered immediately and unequivocally. He turns and walks back towards the gallery entrance, but this time, the dynamics will be entirely different. The speed at which power can shift is breathtaking. In one moment, Eleanor is the gatekeeper, basking in the approval of her peers. In the next, her world is about to be upended by a single text message. This makes you wonder about the hidden power dynamics in our own lives. Who truly holds the cards, and how quickly can a situation be turned on its head? Alejandro re-enters the gallery, but this time, several phones are buzzing with alerts of breaking news. A young art collector in the corner looks up from his screen in astonishment, whispering to his friend, "Vargas Innovations just announced they've acquired this gallery?" Eleanor doesn't see it. She is too engrossed in her moment, recounting her sharp instincts to a small circle of fawning patrons. You learn to develop a feel for these things. I knew from the moment he walked in that he was a problem. Marcus Cole approaches her nervously, phone in hand. "Eleanor, we have to talk. I just received a communication from corporate." She dismisses him with a flick of her wrist. "Not at the moment, Marcus. I'm busy, as you can see." Alejandro walks straight to the reception desk, past the same patrons who had watched his public shaming just 20 minutes earlier. This time, a few of them recognize him from the business articles that are now populating their news feeds. The young art collector nearly drops his champagne flute. "Excuse me," Alejandro says politely to Liam O'Connell, who has turned deathly pale as he reads the news on his tablet. "I think you'll find a reservation for Vargas Innovations." Liam's hands tremble as he confirms the reservation, the same one Eleanor had refused to acknowledge. "Yes, sir. For a private acquisition viewing," I attempted to inform her. His voice fades as he grasps the full weight of what has just transpired. Eleanor finally registers the change in the atmosphere. She turns from her adoring audience, her eyes widening as she spots Alejandro back inside the gallery. "What is he doing in here? Marcus, security!" But Marcus Cole is looking at his own phone, his face a mask of disbelief. "Ma'am," Marcus says quietly. He's the owner of the gallery. He owns the entire collection. The silence that ensues is profound. Patrons hastily pull out their phones, some searching for Alejandro's name, others starting to record what they now sense is about to be an iconic moment. The young Latina couple in the corner share a knowing look. They understand exactly what is about to unfold. Eleanor's expression shifts through stages of confusion, denial, and a creeping sense of dread. "That's absurd. He looked..." She can't form a complete thought, her entire worldview collapsing around her. Alejandro reaches into his denim jacket, the same one Eleanor had derided, and pulls out a business card. "I believe our introductions were cut short." Eleanor's face blanches as she reads the simple, elegant card. Alejandro Vargas, founder and CEO. The gallery is now a theater of accountability. Patrons who had applauded Eleanor's discriminatory actions minutes before now try to fade into the background, deleting recordings, pocketing their phones. Suddenly finding the gallery's architecture fascinating, Eleanor stares at the business card as if it were on fire. This must be a fake. Anyone can have cards printed." But her voice is weak, and Liam O'Connell's tablet screen shines with the confirmation. Alejandro Vargas, founder of Vargas Innovations, net worth $3.5 billion. "Would you like more verification?" Alejandro asks calmly, pulling out his phone. Within moments, Chloe has connected him to the headquarters of the gallery's former parent company. The voice of the regional director comes through the speaker. "Mr. Vargas, our congratulations on the acquisition. We are thrilled to have you visit the Serafina." The color drains from Eleanor's face. Several patrons begin to drift towards the exit, desperate to flee what they recognize as an imminent corporate implosion. But Alejandro is not done teaching his lesson. "Eleanor," he says, using her first name with pointed casualness, "I'd like to introduce you to a few people." He gestures to his phone, where Chloe has set up a conference call with the art collection's board of directors, all of them in a panic trying to understand how they lost control of their company. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," Alejandro says into the phone. "I am calling from the main floor of your premier gallery, where I have just had a most illuminating experience. Eleanor Vance has demonstrated for me precisely why this acquisition was essential." The voices of the board members overlap in a cacophony of confusion and alarm. Eleanor realizes she is on speakerphone, being discussed by the most influential figures in the art world. Her hands shake as she reaches for the phone, but Alejandro moves it just out of her reach. "No, Eleanor. They should hear this from your own lips. Tell them about your high standards. Explain your process for vetting patrons. Share your expertise on who truly belongs in the world of high art." Marcus Cole steps forward, his security instincts clashing with his dawning realization that he is witnessing a historic moment. "Sir, should I..." Alejandro shakes his head. "Marcus, you are acting on orders. This lesson is not for you." The young Latina couple cautiously approaches. The woman speaks in a low, clear voice. "Excuse me, but we wanted to thank you. This happens far more often than people realize." Alejandro nods, seeing kindred spirits who have had to navigate these same prejudiced waters. Eleanor finally opens her mouth to defend herself, but Alejandro's next words will seal her doom. "Before you say anything," Alejandro says, raising a hand to silence Eleanor's defense, "I want you to consider your words carefully. Everything you say from this point on is being recorded by the gallery's security system, witnessed by these patrons, and heard by your former board of directors." Eleanor's mouth opens and closes, but no sound comes out. The woman who had ruled the gallery with such prejudiced authority just 20 minutes ago now stands frozen by the stark reality of her actions. Around her, staff members who saw her discrimination unfold begin texting furiously, some likely sending their resumes to rival galleries. Alejandro continues in the same measured voice he used during his humiliation. "I have dedicated my career to analyzing moments just like this one, the psychology of power, the security of prejudice, the belief that one's actions are without consequence." He pauses, letting the gravity of his words sink in. "You felt secure because you perceived me as powerless." The art collector who first saw the news can no longer resist recording, aware that this footage will be legendary within hours. Other guests are checking stock prices on their phones. The parent company's shares are soaring on the news of the acquisition, fueled by Alejandro's reputation for revitalizing biased institutions. Liam O'Connell finally musters his voice. "Sir, I attempted to tell her to check the reservation. I apologize for what occurred." Alejandro nods with appreciation. "Liam, is it? I observed your attempts to de-escalate. That reveals character." Eleanor finally speaks, her voice barely a whisper. "I was simply upholding our standards. This is an exclusive gallery. We must be cautious about—" She trails off, knowing every word is digging her deeper into a hole. "Cautious about what, Eleanor?" Alejandro asks. "Cautious about people of color? Cautious about anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of a patron? Please, go on. The board is all ears." Marcus Cole's radio buzzes with updates from the front desk. Reporters are already on their way, having caught wind of the story from social media. The young Latina woman from the corner approaches with her phone. "Sir, the world needs to see this. Do I have your permission to post this?" Alejandro thinks for a moment, then nods. "Let the world see what true accountability is." He turns back to Eleanor. "You wanted to make a statement about who belongs in the world of high art. Well, congratulations. You have succeeded far beyond what you could have imagined." Eleanor's knees seem to give way. She grips the reception desk to steady herself, finally comprehending that her comfortable, consequence-free existence has come to an end. The moment of revelation is electrifying. Eleanor's authority, built on a foundation of prejudice, crumbles instantly when faced with the truth. This raises a fascinating question about power. Is real power about controlling access, or is it the ability to create change and demand accountability? Who in this scene truly holds the power? Alejandro pulls out a file he's been holding, and Eleanor's worst fears are about to be realized. He opens the file with a slow, deliberate motion, mirroring the way Eleanor had so casually dismissed his reservation just minutes before. The gallery is silent, save for the quiet hum of phones capturing every second. "Eleanor, I would like to share something with you and everyone present," Alejandro begins, his voice now imbued with the authority he had concealed beneath his casual clothes. 3 days ago, Vargas Innovations finalized the acquisition of the Artisan Collective, your parent company, for $5.8 billion. The figure hangs in the air, a palpable force. Patrons gasp, some steadying themselves against sculptures. Eleanor's face turns ashen as the full scope of her error becomes clear. She didn't just insult a patron. She humiliated her new boss, one of the most successful Latino entrepreneurs in America, on his first day. Alejandro continues, pulling out documents from the file. This was not a hostile action. Your board came to us because my company is known for transforming biased cultural institutions into profitable, inclusive spaces. He looks straight at Eleanor. They were aware you had issues. Liam O'Connell's tablet shows the stock surge. The Artisan Collective's shares have jumped 41% on the acquisition news. Financial news outlets are heralding it as the most significant deal in the art world in a decade, lauding Alejandro's strategy of acquiring underperforming cultural assets and overhauling their toxic cultures. I could have walked in and announced my position immediately, Alejandro explains to the captivated audience. But I have found that a person's true self emerges when they believe there are no repercussions. He gestures to the various cameras. Tonight, the world has seen who you truly are. Eleanor attempts to speak, but only choked noises escape her lips. The woman who had so confidently enacted her prejudices for an appreciative audience is now facing the stark terror of being held accountable. Around her, staff members are physically creating distance, leaving her in a growing circle of isolation. Alejandro addresses the crowd. How many of you have a phone? How many of you recorded the events that just transpired? Several hands go up hesitantly. Good. I want you to hold on to those videos. Share them, because this is what systemic prejudice looks like in the world of high art. He pulls out his own phone, displaying his social media profiles, which have millions of followers who follow his work combating discrimination in business and culture. I have been documenting these kinds of experiences for years, galleries, restaurants, boardrooms, but this evening was different. The young Latina couple steps forward, the woman now speaking with bold confidence. We have lived this too, maybe not here, but in other places. Thank you for taking the stand. Alejandro nods, acknowledging the bravery required to speak out in a room of witnesses. Marcus Cole, the security officer, steps forward cautiously. Sir, I must apologize. I should have assessed the situation more critically. Alejandro looks at him thoughtfully. Marcus, you were in a difficult position, but tell me, what did your instincts tell you? That something was wrong, Marcus confesses. You were too composed, too self-possessed. Most people causing trouble aren't like that. Alejandro nods with approval. Trust your instincts. They are based on experience, not on bias. Eleanor finally finds her voice, her desperation making her reckless. This is a setup. You deliberately deceived us. You can't fire me for... For what, Eleanor? Alejandro interjects. For performing your job as you saw fit? For upholding your standards? For protecting your patrons from people who look like me? His voice is still calm, but a steel edge underlies every word. He turns to address the crowd one last time. Everyone here tonight witnessed a critical moment. You saw how power functions when it believes it is shielded from consequence. Some of you clapped, some of you filmed, some of you did nothing at all. All of those were choices. The file contains one last item. Eleanor's employment record, filled with complaints from minority employees and patrons. Alejandro doesn't have to show it. The message is clear. This was not your first incident, was it, Eleanor? Liam O'Connell whispers urgently to a colleague. The system shows 14 complaints filed against her in the last year, all from patrons of color. The whisper carries in the gallery's acoustics, and Eleanor's shoulders slump in defeat. Alejandro looks around the transformed gallery, at the staff who enabled prejudice through their silence, the patrons who applauded bigotry, the security officers who enforced bias. "Change begins with accountability," he declares, "and accountability begins now." He opens his phone to make the call that will bring Eleanor's career to a definitive end. Alejandro's phone call puts him in direct contact with Sofia Rossi, his head of human resources, who has been observing the situation through the gallery's security cameras and social media feeds. The conversation is broadcast through the lobby speakers, guaranteeing full transparency. "Sofia, I require immediate termination papers for Eleanor Vance, director of the Serafina Gallery, effective tonight. Cause for termination: discrimination, breach of company policy, and actions harmful to the business." His voice projects undeniable executive authority as Eleanor takes a stumbling step back. "Sir," Sofia's voice responds through the speaker, "I've been going over her file while you were on the floor. We have records of 19 discrimination complaints over the past 2 years. The HR department at the Artisan Collective ignored them, but the documentation is all here." The number 19 lands like a shockwave. Staff members trade appalled looks. They were aware of the complaints, but had assumed they were handled by management. Eleanor's face contorts with panic and rage as she grasps the extent of the evidence against her. Alejandro continues the public call. "What about settlements? Any payouts made to silence victims?" Sofia's answer makes several patrons visibly shift in discomfort. "At least 8 settlements, totaling over $450,000. All were sealed with non-disclosure agreements, but we now own those contracts." Marcus Cole steps forward, his security training kicking in as he understands the legal ramifications. "Sir, should I be documenting this for a potential legal case?" Alejandro nods his approval. "Yes, Marcus. Write up a full report on tonight's incident. Eleanor Vance denied access based on race while acting as an official representative of our company." Eleanor finally loses her composure. "This is a conspiracy! You engineered this! You cannot ruin my career over a single error in judgment!" Her voice bounces off the marble walls, but her denials sound empty against the weight of 19 complaints and 8 settlements. Alejandro addresses her directly, his serene voice a stark contrast to her frantic outburst. "Eleanor, this was not a single error. This was a consistent pattern of behavior that my organization will not stand for. You have systematically discriminated against patrons and employees for years." Chloe's voice joins the conference call with updates that send a chill through everyone present. "Sir, local news channels are on their way. An online tabloid is offering $75,000 for exclusive video footage. Legal teams from 4 civil rights groups have called, offering free legal services to any of the victims who wish to come forward." The young Latina woman who saw the initial confrontation approaches Alejandro with her phone. "I posted the video. It has over 15,000 shares in less than 30 minutes. People are calling it #GalleryJustice. Alejandro nods with gratitude. Viral accountability often proves more potent than any internal policy. Liam O'Connell, still standing behind the reception desk, tentatively raises his hand. "Sir, what will happen to the rest of us? We saw this happen, but..." Alejandro gently cuts him off. "Liam, you attempted to intervene. That is significant. But every person who contributed to this pattern through inaction will be evaluated." Eleanor's hysteria mounts. "You can't do this. I have rights. I will sue for wrongful dismissal." Alejandro's reply is swift and crushing. "Eleanor, you discriminated against your new CEO on camera in front of witnesses after 19 prior complaints. Good luck finding an attorney to take on that case." Sofia's voice comes through the speakers again. "Sir, I am working with our legal counsel. We are preparing to void all NDAs for the previous victims of discrimination. They have the right to share their stories publicly if they so choose. This declaration sends a new wave of shock through the gallery. Several patrons who had at first supported Eleanor now start heading for the exits, perhaps recalling their own silent complicity in past events. The art collector who is still filming whispers to his friend, "This is going to be taught in business schools for years." Alejandro speaks to the broader lesson. Everyone here tonight has learned a valuable lesson about enabling discrimination. When you laugh at prejudiced remarks, when you record humiliation as entertainment, when you stand by silently while injustice occurs, you are part of the problem. Marcus Cole's radio crackles with reports from outside. "Sir, the news crews are here. The street is filling up with reporters." Alejandro nods calmly. "Let them in, Marcus. Transparency is the only way we can rebuild trust." Eleanor makes one last desperate attempt. "I'll resign discreetly. No media, no lawsuits. Just allow me to walk away." Alejandro's answer shatters her delusion. "Eleanor, you forfeited your right to a quiet exit when you made my humiliation a public spectacle." Chloe's voice delivers the final update. "Sir, the board has unanimously voted to endorse all terminations and policy reforms. They have also authorized a $3 million fund for victim compensation and diversity and inclusion training across all affiliated galleries." As the gallery transforms into a live news scene as reporters pour in, their cameras capturing Eleanor's complete breakdown and Alejandro's composed leadership. The young Latina couple agrees to be interviewed, sharing their own experiences with discrimination in cultural spaces. Staff members who had once been silent now line up to give statements about the toxic environment they had to endure. Alejandro addresses the assembled media with the same dignity he showed during his humiliation. Tonight marks a turning point. The art world has protected this kind of discrimination for far too long. Vargas Innovations will set a new standard. Eleanor's final moments as a gallery director are recorded on dozens of phones and professional cameras as security escorts her from the premises. A bitter twist of fate that is not lost on anyone present. Her career in the art world is finished. Her actions are now destined to become a case study on the high cost of discrimination. Liam O'Connell approaches Alejandro hesitantly. "Sir, about the rest of the staff. We want to be better. How can we fix this?" Alejandro's response offers a path to redemption. "Liam, admitting there is a problem is the first step. Education is the second, and accountability is the third. Are you prepared to commit to all three?" The gallery is alive with activity as reporters interview witnesses, staff give statements, and social media platforms explode with videos from the evening. Eleanor's public humiliation of Alejandro has become her own professional demise, broadcast to millions as a stark warning about the consequences of bigotry. But her downfall is merely the start. Alejandro has a vision for a complete industry-wide overhaul. The public unraveling of Eleanor's career is both intense and symbolic. It demonstrates that true power lies not in hierarchical authority, but in transparency and moral conviction. This scene forces us to ask, is public shaming a necessary tool for accountability in the digital age, or does it risk becoming a form of mob justice? Where do we draw the line between consequences and cruelty? 1 month later, Eleanor is seated in a sterile conference room for an employment arbitration hearing, her high-priced lawyer nervously arranging a stack of papers. Across from her, Alejandro is present via video conference, accompanied by Sofia Rossi and a team of civil rights lawyers who have taken the case without charge. The arbitrator, a retired judge named Evelyn Reed goes through the mountain of evidence. Security footage from the night in question, 19 previous complaints, documented legal settlements, and sworn statements from former employees who now feel safe to speak out since Eleanor's firing. Eleanor's lawyer tries to mitigate the damage. "Your Honor, my client experienced a lapse in judgment on a particularly stressful night. She has served in the art world for over 15 years with no significant incidents." "Counselor," Judge Reed interjects, "we have records of 8 legal settlements for discrimination within a 2-year period. That can hardly be classified as no significant incidents." Eleanor's face falls as she watches her legal strategy dissolve. Alejandro speaks from the screen, his voice holding the same calm authority from that night. "Your Honor, this hearing is not merely about one employee. It is about a professional culture that encouraged and rewarded Eleanor's behavior for years. She received accolades for upholding exclusivity and attracting an upscale clientele, euphemisms for discrimination." The arbitration panel reviews statements from Eleanor's past victims, patrons and staff who had been subjected to her prejudice but were silenced by non-disclosure agreements and fear of losing their jobs. A former gallery assistant, Isabella Reyes, testifies with tears in her eyes. "She called me the help for my entire first year. When I brought it to HR, they told me I was being overly sensitive and hinted my job was on the line." Eleanor's life had spiraled downward after the video of her termination went viral. Art world recruiters blacklisted her. Her social media profiles became a study in career suicide. She was served with divorce papers as her husband felt the sting of guilt by association. Her reputation in her affluent community was ruined as neighbors recognized her from the viral footage. Judge Reed addresses Eleanor directly. "Ms. Vance, do you comprehend the full impact of your actions on the victims who have given testimony today?" Eleanor's response is hollow. "I was simply doing my job, maintaining the standards I was taught to uphold." "Whose standards exactly?" Alejandro interjects from the screen. "Because the standards of Vargas Innovations include dignity, respect, and equitable treatment for all, regardless of race or background. Those are the standards you violated." The arbitrator's decision is swift and firm. Eleanor's termination is deemed justified. Her appeal for wrongful dismissal is rejected, and she is held personally responsible for $75,000 in arbitration fees. Furthermore, the ruling sets a legal precedent for holding individual employees liable for discriminatory acts, even if they were aligned with an unofficial company culture. Sophia Rossi delivers the final blow. "Your Honor, Eleanor Vance has been permanently barred from all properties owned by Vargas Innovations. We have also forwarded her employment records to our industry affiliates for their information." Eleanor realizes she is effectively shut out of the high-end art world for good. The young Latina couple from that night joins the hearing virtually, having become advocates for victims of discrimination in cultural institutions. The woman speaks with passion. Eleanor's downfall is not about revenge. It's about accountability. Every victim who suffered in silence because they felt they had no power now knows that their voice is important. Marcus Cole, now promoted to Director of Security after undergoing extensive diversity training, gives his testimony by video. "That night changed my entire perspective on my job. I am not just here to protect art. I am here to protect people's dignity." His promotion, contrasted with Eleanor's termination, sends a clear signal about the new values at play. Eleanor's final statement to the arbitrator shows no sign of growth or contrition. "I still fail to see why this escalated into such a major issue. It was one evening, one simple misunderstanding." her total lack of self-awareness seals her fate. The panel notes her failure to acknowledge the harm she caused in its permanent record. Judge Reed delivers a closing statement that is widely quoted in business and ethics journals. Ms. Vance, you treated human dignity as a luxury good, available only to patrons who met with your personal approval. You have learned today that accountability is non-negotiable, regardless of one's position or assumptions about a lack of consequences. As the hearing ends, Eleanor leaves to face a crowd of waiting reporters, a final humiliation as she is forced to walk past cameras documenting her utter professional ruin. Her lawyer abandons her on the courthouse steps, unwilling to be further tainted by her reputation. Alejandro signs off from the video conference with words that will resonate far beyond this single case. This hearing is more than just one employee's termination. It is a clear message to an entire industry that discrimination will be met with swift, public, and permanent consequences. The arbitration ruling becomes landmark case law, cited in subsequent employment discrimination lawsuits across numerous industries. Eleanor's name becomes a byword for the consequences of workplace prejudice, a cautionary tale recited in HR training seminars across the country. The formal, legal consequences faced by Eleanor are a stark contrast to the emotional, public drama of her firing. It highlights the difference between social accountability and legal accountability. While the viral video destroyed her reputation, the tribunal dismantled her career and set a legal precedent. This makes you wonder, which form of accountability is more effective at creating lasting change? But Eleanor's fall from grace sparks an industry-wide revolution that Alejandro has been orchestrating for years. 6 months after the arbitration, Alejandro is on stage at the Global Art and Culture Summit, giving a keynote address to 2,000 industry leaders that will redefine the concept of luxury cultural experiences forever. The case of the Serafina Gallery was not an isolated incident, Alejandro tells the packed auditorium. Our internal audits have uncovered similar patterns at over 300 galleries, museums, and auction houses across 9 major cultural conglomerates. Discrimination was not a flaw in the system, it was a fundamental feature. The deep, uncomfortable silence that follows speaks volumes. Sophia Rossi presents a series of startling statistics. Vargas Innovations has fielded over 500 discrimination complaints since we rolled out our confidential reporting platform. 22 directors have been dismissed. 54 institutions have been put through a complete cultural restructuring. Visitor satisfaction scores among minority patrons have risen by 72%. The industry's reaction has been rapid and, at times, desperate. Rival cultural institutions have scrambled to enact their own anti-discrimination policies, terrified of being the next viral story of accountability. The hashtag #ArtWorldJustice now tracks discrimination incidents globally, with victims no longer willing to suffer in silence. Marcus Cole, now a sought-after speaker at museum security conferences, explains the shift. We redesigned our training from scratch. Security personnel now receive intensive bias awareness training. Our mission is to protect dignity, not to enforce discrimination. His journey from a compliant enforcer to a proactive advocate shows that redemption is attainable. The young Latina couple from that night, now married, appears on national talk shows to discuss their experience. We thought we were isolated. Alejandro proved to us that staying silent empowers the system, but speaking out protects the next generation of victims. Their advocacy has helped countless others find the courage to share their stories. Alejandro reveals his larger strategy. That night at the Serafina was a calculated move. We have carried out similar audits at 58 institutions across the country, gathering legally sound evidence of systemic prejudice. The audience realizes they are part of a deliberate institutional transformation. Corporate boards throughout the art world have now adopted Alejandro's dignity audits, undercover assessments that gauge employee reactions to a diverse range of patrons. Institutions that fail these audits face immediate intervention, mandatory retraining, or even closure. Stock prices now factor in diversity and inclusion metrics alongside traditional financial performance. Legal precedents set by Eleanor's case have streamlined the process for discrimination lawsuits, with defendants opting to settle quickly rather than endure a public trial. The cost of bigotry now far exceeds the imagined benefits of exclusion. Educational institutions have woven the Serafina Gallery case into their programs. Prominent universities and art schools now use Alejandro's experience as required reading for courses on leadership, ethics, and systemic reform. Alejandro ends his keynote with the most critical metric of all. We have facilitated the creation of 15,000 new jobs that prioritize diversity. Revenue at our reformed institutions has climbed by 28%, as we now attract patrons who had previously felt alienated by the art world due to fears of discrimination. The standing ovation he receives is not just a matter of professional etiquette. It is a recognition that Alejandro has fundamentally changed the way the luxury art world functions. Eleanor's 20 minutes of prejudiced theater set in motion an industry-wide transformation that now benefits millions of art lovers and cultural workers. But Alejandro's ultimate goal extends well beyond the art world. He is setting his sights on rooting out discrimination across all sectors of society. 2 years later, Alejandro returns to the Serafina Gallery, not as an undercover auditor, but as the celebrated CEO whose transformation of the space has become a thing of legend. The same marble-floored gallery that was the scene of his humiliation now features awards for diversity and excellence in cultural leadership. Liam O'Connell, promoted to gallery director after comprehensive training and demonstrating genuine personal growth, greets Alejandro warmly. "Welcome back, Mr. Vargas. We have the new acquisitions ready for your private viewing." The exchange is natural, professional, and respectful. Everything that Eleanor's performance was not on that fateful night. Marcus Cole, now the regional director of security overseeing diversity and inclusion training for all Vargas properties, joins them with his quarterly report. "0 reported incidents of discrimination this quarter, sir. Visitor satisfaction among patrons of color is up 92% since the reforms." His own transformation from a reluctant enforcer to a passionate champion of dignity demonstrates the power of accountability. The couple from that night now visits the gallery every year on their anniversary, bringing along friends and family to enjoy a cultural space that now celebrates, rather than merely puts up with, diversity. Their own children now run through the gallery where their parents once felt a sense of fear, a potent symbol of progress across generations. Alejandro walks through the gallery, taking in the interactions between the staff and patrons from all walks of life. The atmosphere of comfort is authentic, not forced. Employees offer genuine smiles to everyone, not making snap judgments of worth based on attire or assumptions. The cultural shift is both complete and enduring. In what was once Eleanor's office, now a center for diversity training, Alejandro goes over the broader impact of his work. Vargas Innovations has set the new industry standard for inclusive excellence. Their employee retention rates are the best in the sector. Their revenue growth continues to surpass that of their competitors. It turns out that dignity is a highly profitable commodity. Displayed on the wall are framed letters from patrons who have experienced the transformation firsthand. An older Black veteran who finally felt at ease in a high-end cultural space. A young immigrant entrepreneur who credits a piece of art she saw there for inspiring her new venture. A family who celebrated their daughter's art school acceptance in the gallery. Each letter represents a piece of Eleanor's toxic legacy being overwritten with human dignity. Alejandro thinks back on his own psychological journey, from humiliation to empowerment, from individual justice to systemic reform. The pain of that night has been channeled into purposeful action that benefits thousands. The personal became political. The local became national. The individual became institutional. He goes to the reception desk where it all started, observing the diverse staff who now reflect the communities they serve. The gallery's system now flags any guest complaints regarding service, with automatic protocols that ensure no hint of discrimination is overlooked. Technology is being used to reinforce human dignity. Chloe joins him for their daily meeting, reporting on the industry-wide metrics. Sir, 23 major cultural institutions have now implemented dignity audits based on our model. The Cultural Equity Initiative you established has processed over 3,000 discrimination reports, achieving a 96% resolution rate. The gallery fills with patrons for the evening's events, families going to a lecture, business people networking, couples on dates. The diversity is natural, embraced, and celebrated. This is what the world of high art should look like, a space where everyone feels they belong. Alejandro's phone buzzes. It's a text from his mentor, Dr. Sharma. Saw your profile in Time magazine about extending the dignity audits to the worlds of finance and real estate. You have transformed trauma into a powerful tool for change. I am so proud of the journey you are on. The psychological work of processing the humiliation of that night has fueled broader social change. As evening falls over the city, Alejandro stands in the exact spot where Eleanor staged her racist performance 2 years earlier. The space now holds a completely different energy, warm, inclusive, and truly welcoming. The marble floors still shine, but now they reflect a much wider spectrum of humanity. Should prejudiced managers face permanent professional blacklisting? Let me know your thoughts. The moral of the story becomes clear in his mind, simple yet profound. Dignity denied anywhere diminishes dignity everywhere. But the courage to stand up to injustice can transform entire systems for the better. Alejandro turns to address the viewers directly from the transformed Serafina Gallery. 2 years ago, this very space was the scene of 20 minutes of racist humiliation that became a catalyst for change. Today, it stands as a testament to what is possible when we choose accountability over comfort and justice over silence. The camera shows the diverse and vibrant gallery as Alejandro continues. Eleanor Vance believed she was protecting an exclusive world. Instead, she set in motion the most comprehensive reform of cultural institution discrimination in modern history. On the screen, statistics flash. 23 cultural institutions reformed, 3,000 discrimination complaints addressed, 15,000 diverse jobs created, 92% increase in minority patron satisfaction. The data tells a story of transformation that goes far beyond one viral moment. Alejandro's voice carries the authority earned through conflict. But the art world was only the first step. Vargas Innovations is now conducting dignity audits in finance, real estate, healthcare, and law. We are expanding across the country because discrimination is everywhere, and so is the opportunity for positive change. The screen displays footage from new investigations: a black couple being denied a home loan, a young Muslim woman being ignored at a top law firm, an elderly Asian man being dismissed by a doctor. Each case follows the same pattern that Eleanor exhibited: judgments based on appearance and power protected by privilege. Next month, Alejandro announces, we are launching the Dignity Mandate. Citizens will be able to nominate companies and institutions they suspect of discrimination. We will conduct undercover evaluations and release our findings publicly. Businesses that pass will receive a certification of excellence. Those that fail will receive national media attention and will be required to implement reforms. The camera focuses on a new plaque installed where the humiliating confrontation took place. In memory of dignity denied and justice delayed, may this space serve as a constant reminder that accountability is never optional. Alejandro's final message connects with viewers who are looking for both justice and hope. Eleanor's story does not conclude with her downfall. It begins with our collective uprising. For every person who has faced discrimination, for every witness who has chosen silence, for every system that has sheltered prejudice, your moment of reckoning is here. Social media graphics appear, encouraging viewers to get involved. Share your stories of discrimination using the hashtag #DignityMandate. Nominate businesses for equity audits. Follow Alejandro Vargas for updates on systemic reform initiatives. The movement is designed to go beyond passive entertainment and into active engagement. Remember, Alejandro concludes, dignity is not a privilege that must be earned. It is a fundamental right that must be protected. When we stand up for one person's dignity, we are standing up for everyone's freedom. That is not just a business model, it is a moral imperative. The final shot is of Alejandro walking through the transformed gallery as diverse patrons and staff interact with ease, professionalism, and mutual respect. The contrast with the night of the incident is absolute and powerful. If this story has inspired you to demand more, subscribe for updates on our national dignity audits. Because Eleanor was just the start. Systemic discrimination will end when systemic accountability begins. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with Alejandro's core principle. Dignity denied anywhere diminishes dignity everywhere. But courage to confront injustice transforms systems for everyone.